I'm Nick Harper, live from Washington, D.C., and these are the headlines of the hour. US President Joe Biden makes a fervent appeal for lawmakers to pass tougher gun control laws, including a ban on assault weapons, to curb the scourge of mass shootings, turning American communities into killing fields. Ukraine will emerge victorious in the war started by Russia, says its President Zelensky, as Moscow's invasion of its neighbour enters the 100th day. Russia accuses Germany of throwing European security into imbalance by remilitarising, as Berlin moves to boost its military spending in response to Moscow's invasion of Ukraine.
Tell me if buying Russian gas is not funding the war? I mean, why is it's only Indian money and oil coming to India which funds, but it's not gas coming to Europe which funds? I mean, I don't know, somewhere.
Indian Foreign Minister refutes accusations that his country is funding the war in Ukraine by buying significant amounts of Russian oil. American employers add about 400,000 jobs last month, a sign of a slowdown in hiring, but still better than expected. The tale of American gun violence and deaths continue. The latest victim is the state of Iowa, and two people and the shooter outside a church on the outskirts of Ames. A man shot and killed two women in the parking lot of a church, then turned the gun on himself, adding 3 more dead to the toll in a series of recent shootings that have rocked the United States. The incident took place at a fundamentalist Christian church while a church program was going on inside. When deputies arrived on the scene, they found all 3 dead. Meanwhile, another shooting incident rocked a funeral service in Racine, Wisconsin. At least 2 people were shot while attending a burial at a cemetery. Well, both of those shooting incidents took place just hours after the gun control debate in the US House. The House committee was debating a gun control legislation measure. The bill is called Protecting Our Kids. It is a 41-page act which aims to toughen national gun laws. One of the major provisions is raising the legal age for buying certain guns. The current legal age is 18 years, which could be raised to 21. This is a crucial provision because the shootings that occurred in New York and then in Texas were carried out by 18-year-olds. Some of the other provisions that lawmakers are focusing on include clamping down on the trafficking of weapons and encouraging their safe storage. President Biden demanded that lawmakers respond to communities turned into killing fields. In a rare evening address to the nation, the US president asked the Republicans to block gun measures supported by large majorities in both parties, and even among gun owners.
Look, I know some folks will say 18-year-olds can serve in the military and fire those weapons. But that's with training and supervision by the best trained experts in the world. Don't tell me raising the age won't make a difference. Enough. We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And if we can't ban assault weapons, then we should raise the age to purchase them from 18 to 21. Strengthen background checks. Enact safe storage law and red flag laws. Repeal the immunity that protects gun manufacturers from liability address the mental health crisis, deepening the trauma of gun violence and as a consequence of that violence. These are rational, common sense measures.
Republicans in the House objected to advancing new limits on gun purchases. In a dramatic show of defiance, one Republican legislator pulled out his handguns at the hearing. Republican Representative Greg Stube held up 3 guns, one by one, for the committee to see.
Here's a Sig Sauer 320. It takes a 20-round magazine. Here's a 12-round magazine that would be banned. It doesn't fit because it would be banned. This gun would be banned under this bill. Here's a gun I carry every single day to protect myself, my family, my wife, my home. This is a XL Sig Sauer P365. I'm at my house. I can do whatever I want with my guns.
Raise a point of order.
Is exactly what the Democrats want to do.
The committee will attempt to approve the bill. Democrats, who narrowly control the House, intend to put the bill to a vote by the full chamber next week. However, the measure has little chance of passing the Senate amid political headwinds. Biden's party holds enough votes to pass the bill in the House, but it faces slim chances in the Senate. 60 votes are required in the Senate to advance most legislation. It's expected to be an uphill battle for the Democrats, as Republicans in Congress strongly advocate for gun rights.
Well,
Our correspondent Susan Tarani is joining us live from New York City to give us more on this. Susan, the gun violence continues seemingly unabated in the US. Can anything be done about these mass shootings that are rocking the country?
So the conversation is ongoing right now. There is some hope and leeway since we talk about the Senate, and it seems like the headline is that this gridlock will ultimately be in the Senate. Republicans and Democrats, there is hope that they may reach a consensus on red flag laws, stricter background checks, and also perhaps, issues regarding mental health as well, and safety in schools following of all the shootings. So Senator Chris Murphy will reach across the aisle to his colleagues from Texas, and they are expected to put forth their own bill. The Democrats know very well in Congress that their widespread bill will not get passed. President Biden himself also knows that, what he proposed last night will definitely be extremely ambitious. But the way the U.S. Constitution is set, and we can't stress this enough, a lot of states pass their own gun laws. For example, in light of the Buffalo shooting and what happened in Texas, New York just yesterday on Thursday passed sweeping gun legislation, raising the age from 18 to 21 to buy semi-automatic rifles. A lot of other major changes were made to gun laws here in New York yesterday through this legislation. For example, the buying of bullet-resistant armor, which was worn by the killer in Buffalo. Also, new guns to be equipped with microchipping technology as well to help law enforcement identify where these guns are being purchased. 22 states across the country have these strict gun laws. States really have the opportunity and the chance and the legal authority to pass these strict gun laws should they deem necessary. On a federal level, those red flag laws perhaps might be the best chance at this point in time.
And Susan, President Biden is also pushing to try and bring back that 1994 ban on assault weapons, as well as increasing the legal age to bear arms from 18 to 21. Will measures like those work?
Right. like I said, we'll see in the case of New York, which again has one of the highest crime rates in the country. So does Chicago. Incidentally, they also have the strictest gun laws. But I think this bill that has been passed by New York just yesterday that raises the age from 18 to 21 will be a great test, a case test to see. And I think a lot of people across the country and across New York are hoping that it will really put a dent into these gun incidents, and we'll wait and see whether or not this will help or not. But on a federal level, President Biden knows himself that based on the U.S. Constitution, it's very hard to get something like that passed, whether in Congress or on the Senate floor, to raise the age, because the Democrats and the Republicans really won't agree. And the reason for that is because the constituents of those lawmakers really in their states don't agree. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, the 1994 law that banned assault weapons, really that was during the time that there were only 1.5 million assault weapons. Some call it a limited law. Those that did have these assault weapons were able to keep their own assault weapons during that time, and it was supposed to be a gradual law. So, bringing back a law from 1994, again, it's going to be very debatable. Will there be amendments to it or not? That's probably going to be very unlikely as well. But I think the president took this opportunity to address the nation, on the one hand, to say that he is on this issue. On the other hand, if even a minor law gets passed in Congress or ultimately in the Senate, which will be the most important, at least, he can take some credit for come the midterm election.
Susan Durrani live for us in New York City. Thanks as always, Susan. Well, next today, the White House has taken the rare step of praising Saudi Arabia for extending a ceasefire in Yemen. The White House said that the Saudi king and the Crown Prince deserved credit for their roles in diplomacy, which brought about the truce. And sources say that the US president is planning a trip to Riyadh later this month. While the visit is yet to be formally confirmed by the White House, the stopover in Riyadh is likely to be added to a previously scheduled trip to Israel, Germany and Spain. Despite the tensions brought about by Jamal Khashoggi's death, Washington has been careful not to break nearly 8-decade-old relations with Riyadh. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has called Saudi a critical partner to the US, especially when dealing with extremism in the region, along with dealing with challenges posed by Iran. Well, all of this also coincides with the recent decision taken by the OPEC Plus group to help ease the oil crisis. The Organisation of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, have agreed to increase crude output. But this decision has been overshadowed by a recent spike in global oil prices.
Saudi Arabia and other OPEC Plus states agreed to increase oil production Thursday in hopes of easing surging oil prices and global inflation, and to smooth the way for an ice-breaking visit to Riyadh by U.S. President Joe Biden. The move is seen as a sign of willingness by Saudi Arabia and other OPEC Gulf nations to pump more after months of pressure from the West to address global energy shortages worsened by Western sanctions on Russia. OPEC Plus said it agreed to boost output by 648,000 barrels per day in July and a similar amount in August. But oil rose on the news toward $117 a barrel, as analysts said the real production boost will be insignificant, as most OPEC members, aside from Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, are already pumping at capacity. Earlier this year, oil came close to an all-time peak of $147 a barrel, hit in 2008. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and other producing nations includes Russia, whose output has fallen by about 1 million barrels per day following sanctions on Moscow over its invasion of Ukraine. The news comes ahead of a critical visit to the Middle East for President Biden. U.S. diplomats have worked for weeks organizing Biden's first trip to Riyadh after 2 years of strained relations due to disagreements over human rights, the war in Yemen, and the 2018 killing of U.S.-based Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, a murder which U.S. intelligence has accused Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of approving, a charge the prince denies. The White House said it welcomed Thursday's decision and recognized the role of Saudi Arabia in achieving OPEC Plus consensus.
Moving on to Ukraine. Today is the 100th day of the Russian invasion of the country, and fighting continues with no end in sight. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that Russian forces now control 20% of his country's territory. Here's how the situation currently stands. Fighting is mostly concentrated in eastern Ukraine. Russia is focusing on what it calls the liberation of Donbass. Severodonetsk and Lysychansk are also major battlegrounds. If Russia gains control of these regions, it would get control of the whole of Luhansk. Zelensky says that Ukrainian troops are carrying out counterattacks to try and push back Russian troops.
Ситуація на Донбасі за добу суттєво не змінилась. Маємо певні успіхи в боях в Сєвєродонецьку, але ще рано говорити. Там зараз найжорсткіше, як і в містах, і громадах поруч. Лисичанськ, Бахмут та інші. Багато таких міст, де йде така потужна атака Росії. Російська армія застосовує всі наявні у неї збройні можливості, взагалі не рахує людей. Особливо цинічно, що в першій лінії атак дуже часто окупанти використовують саме тих людей, яких набрали у свою армію на раніше окупованій території Донецької і Луганської областей. Російські солдати часто просто ховаються за спинами цих так званих мобілізованих.
Shifting focus to the city of Slovyansk, civilians there are being urged to evacuate as bombing in the region intensifies. There's no water or electricity there.
Мне страшно. До сих пор не верится, что это происходит на самом деле с нами. Жалко все это. За город страшно, за страну страшно. И страшно, будет ли вообще куда-сюда нам возвращаться. Я вообще не знаю. Просто едем, потому что понимаю, что нужно ехать. Хочется, чтобы поскорее мы победили, и все было хорошо.
Well, across the Atlantic, NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg met US President Joe Biden at the White House. He warned that the world needs to be prepared that the war might drag on. And he reiterated that NATO does not want direct conflict with Russia.
Wars are by nature unpredictable, and therefore we just have to be prepared for the long haul, because what we see is that this war has now become a war of attrition, where the Ukrainians are paying a high price for defending their own country on the battlefield.
Russia's shock and awe invasion.
There is uncertainty around the city of Kiev.
Meets Ukraine grit and tenacity.
The people of Kiev are standing up for their country.
Conflict sparks global energy and food crises. We told you every story, every detail. Tales of tenacity and horrors of war. Millions flee, thousands killed. 100 days of Russia-Ukraine war.
Next today, Turkey has officially changed its name to Turkiye. The UN has agreed to recognise the change after a request from Turkey's government. According to the Turkish Foreign Minister, the move brings an end to the process of increasing the brand value of the country.
Turkey has a new name, Turkiye. The Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan announced the name change. He said, and I quote, "The new name represents and expresses the culture, civilization and values of the Turkish nation in the best way." Now reports suggest that Ankara is going to register the new name at the United Nations. Turkey seems desperate to push ahead with the change. While changing names is not new for countries, Turkey's logic for it sounded a little bizarre. Turkish broadcaster TRT even wrote an article to explain this. Their first point was that when you type Turkey in Google, it usually associates it with the bird. Second, in the Cambridge Dictionary, Turkey is defined as something that fails badly. So the solution, a name change. Initially, Turkish public did not know how to react to this. But government agencies and news networks were quick to follow Erdogan's lead. The Foreign Ministry wasted no time. Its website now welcomes visitors with the Republic of Turkey title. Turkish foreign missions all around the world now also use Turkiye in their correspondences.
Hello, Turkiye.
But introducing a new name to the international arena is one thing. Convincing everybody else to use it is another, especially when Turkey has bigger problems. Its economy is at its weakest. Inflation is high. It is diplomatically isolated from the West. There is public anger against Erdogan. So with elections nearing and support waning, the nationalism card is Erdogan's new favorite. But unfortunately for him, Turkish voters can now see through his charade. The man who set out to head an Islamic caliphate is struggling to keep his empire. West Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
An Ivorian artist is breathing new life into old mobile phones by recycling them into colourful pieces of art. He's exhibiting his artwork in his native country of Côte d'Ivoire in the capital, Abidjan, until July.
At first glance, a patchwork. But on closer inspection, it's not made of fabric, but of mobile phones. Dozens of keyboards from used phones sewn together and used as a canvas from which Munu Desire Kofi makes his works. His unusual medium makes this young Ivorian artist stand out.
Why recycling? Because I didn't want to limit my work only to painting, to the medium of painting, to express myself just in that way. I wanted to bring something new. And I think the mobile phone is the tool that we're most attached to. Most of my work is about life, about people, so basically how people are in society.
Kofi started scouring the streets and rubbish dumps to collect old phones after graduating from the Abidjan Art School. These days, he has a whole team on the lookout for him. The more they bring in, the more they'll get paid. And in a country that hardly sorts its waste, Kofi hopes to change attitudes by raising awareness about recycling.
I think that just the act of collecting old phones, of breathing new life into so-called waste, people say to themselves, aha, in fact, these things that have been thrown away that don't work anymore can be made into something new. They can contribute something.
The collected keyboards are passed on to these seamstresses to be assembled. Kofi is the artistic brains behind the operation, thinking up new designs. One of his latest series, Life Here, acts as a portrait of the daily lives of the people of Abidjan. Some of his pieces sell for up to $1,500. After exhibitions in Morocco, Belgium and France, his latest show is right here at home. The 28-year-old has caught the attention of the art world.
Doing something useful for humanity is always encouraging, and making it pretty. And raising awareness is even better.
The canvas is an innovative one, since he works on canvases that are rubbish. In fact, he breathes new life into these canvases, and that brings even more to African contemporary art.
Kofi's works will be on display until July. You could say he's got recycling down to a fine art.
The world's largest soft drinks company, Coca-Cola, is facing a backlash by a group of garbage recyclers. They're protesting to try and rid the planet of plastic polluters. We leave you with the details. Thanks for watching.
We are more than 150,000 men and women recyclers nationwide, and we are the only ones who put our hands in the garbage to recover what this company puts into the environment.
This is right, Arab.